individuality was in some ways feared. I mean, nobody wanted really to stand out and be too much of an individual. We wanted to fit in. And good fortune was disavowed. Anytime you complimented somebody, they sort of always demurred. So you tell somebody, and that standard, even a thriving businessman, if you ask the businessman, how is it going? So in Hindi, you would say, "Ke kat jati hai," meaning somehow managed to eke out a living. Nobody confessed to good fortune. Life was a condition into which we were born, and we found devious ways to extract joy from it. But it was that sense of the fact that we are born, and our destiny there is a certain path that has been determined for us. The young in such an environment lived a life often of passive resentment. There's always somebody forced to do science while muttering under their breath about the father, saying, "I didn't really want to do this." This sense of limited opportunity, I think, which was pervasive, and few avenues of mobility, and there were rules for everything, the dominance of elders. Liberalization came and changed everything. It gave a certain new avenues, it gave new opportunities, it awakened desire, created a sense of mobility, made it okay for once to be an individual. And tradition in India is never defeated. In India, tradition is always alive. Modernity is nothing but continuously negotiated tradition. But we did find that there were new voices that emerged. The young look to tomorrow rather than yesterday. This is the first generation in India that believes that our tomorrow is going to be better than our yesterday. Every other generation before that always believed somehow in the power of yesterday. But the change was a controlled one. Television, few brands, the kind of world that Ambi described in his introduction. When digital has come, and I would argue perhaps sharply, that digital is not just another medium. It is not a change like the other kind of changes that we see in our lives. The coming of digital is a fundamental disruption in our lives. It is like a bomb that has gone off somewhere underground, but one which has changed everything in unpredictable ways. We don't fully recognize what happens in WhatsApp groups. We don't fully know what is being watched on YouTube channels. There is a person called Lily Singh, who's known as Superwoman, who most of people in this room may or may not have heard of. She has about 8 million subscribers, who follow her videos that come out every week. Just to give you a sense of perspective, Arnab Goswami, who all of us know, his show would get built up over a week, would get about 2 to 3 lakh viewers. That's the kind of difference. We think of somebody else as a celebrity, we barely know the other person. That's the nature of change that is taking place in the digital world. A lot of it is visible, a lot of it is invisible, and the effects that it produces, we are not fully cognizant of. Digital, what it is doing is detaching the individual from the collective, giving access to a whole new world of stimuli and giving voice to a range of new sensations in a way that are fresh, imaginative, and untutored. And this is what is happening. Digital is enabling the imagination, allowing us to think of the world in a new way, in a very personal way. And that are big changes indeed. This convergence of liberalization, of technology, of digital, of growing affluence is creating an interesting set of effects. The one big change that we see in our lives, and all of us see it, is how ubiquitous technology has become. And somehow although this has happened only in the last decade, we have kind of become blind to this. There is the fact that there is always a helping hand available. We are never alone. We always have this. It tells us about traffic. It asks, this is our genie in this world that we are never without. And this was not always the case. Now we sort of have come so easily to terms with it that we forget how unusual this is, that we are always armed. We are always armed. And it's a wraparound sense of being surrounded by the world. Anything that we want is virtually present in the ether. There are times, we do a lot of work in small town India, where when you're walking down a street, every single person on the street is on their mobile phone. Every single person in a public gathering. It happens in conferences, of course, all the time, when somebody is speaking. But there is this sense of always being lost. And what this does is that, from as far as marketing, business is concerned, at one level, the consumer is always accessible because they are always engaged with media. At another level, they are never accessible. Even on a dining table, they are never there. We are always somewhere else. We are never here. And I think that's the kind of abiding paradox of the digital world and the digital consumer. The other thing that it does, and this is again at a very, very fundamental level, there's a deep and intuitive sense of being an individual. Nothing individualizes us more than the fact that we have a mobile phone into which we are lost. At any given point in time, 100 people on their mobile phones, chances are that all 100 of them are doing something else. This is not the case in mass media. When you watch television, even if there are 500 channels, there is a pattern. At any given point in time, 40% of the people are watching the same thing. In mobile phones, everybody is an individual, exposed to a completely different universe. Identity is underlined in this way because you experience it in a very, very particular kind of a way. And therefore, there is an instinctive need for personal brands, personal likes. You're seeing exciting new forms for again, I don't know how many, all the new comedy videos that come up, figures like a Mallika Dua or a Dhinchak Puja or this gentleman called Naizi who's a rap singer in Bombay, or several such new kind of voices are emerging, where people are creating and are listening to something that connects to them and them alone. And I think this aids this. It gives an opportunity for brands to help consumers express themselves in a personal sense and create these very sharp kind of brands that speak to a very particular set of people. There is a sense that the world is meant to respond to my needs. And you find this among younger people a lot, and this sense that the world exists to take care of me. It is its function to respond to all my needs. The fact that, you have that old, I don't know how many of you have seen that old kind of a photograph of a young infant is trying to, in a magazine, trying to sort of, touch and activate an icon so that something opens. Unfortunately, magazines are dead, but, for the infant, everything is a touch screen. The world is a touch screen. We touch something and something should happen. That sense that the world must always respond to me. That point and shoot, click and open, the touch screen, the remote control, these are the symbols of this generation. Everything is on call. Low distance between desire and fulfillment. If a thought comes to my head, between that and its fulfillment, I want a minimum gap. Because that's my expectation, that if I want something, it should happen. And therefore, the need for seamless, rich experiences as far as business and marketing is concerned must be delivered because that is the expectation today. There is an array of diverse and simultaneous choices. Again, I come from a generation where there was no choice. We didn't know how to deal with choices. I've always said Hindi films or Indian films, all films, in a love triangle, one of the people had to die. Because, we couldn't choose. The girl couldn't choose, I like this boy more. But that boy had to die. I mean, there was no other choice because we didn't know how to do it. Today, this sense that there is no sense of constraints, that there is multiplicity, and it's a non-linear hopping from one option to the other. So you move from one kind of a option, and you're suddenly shopping somewhere else, and then you're moving. That kind of a hyperlinked world, we move through the barest thought, the flicker of a thought in our head is enough for us to navigate across choices. And there is a choice-making muscle virtually that exists in this younger generation. And therefore, it's not, marketing must now also be about the joy of exploration, the joy of discovery, the pleasure of search. It is not just about finding things, but it's also about looking for things and the pleasure that entails. There is a strong sense of the visual. We've grown up in a text-based world or an oral world. This is a generation that understands visuality and expresses itself visually in a dramatically different way. And it's at ease with visual languages. The emoji, for instance, is a great representation of how you express yourself in a language that is visual. And you are able to say things you could not otherwise have said through words. You are able to express that by this hybrid kind of a visual language. Instagram, for instance. Again, it's a generational thing. You will find that the kind of expressiveness that you find on Instagram and is remarkable. Because you are able to, again, without saying everything, express a lot. You don't have to pin yourself down. This is what I mean. It's a much more open form of communication. And therefore, it also begs from marketers the need to create new forms of communication. The old methods don't work. You need, because this is a generation that is excited by and aware of completely new forms. There's a matter of factness about change. It's interesting that the only people dazzled by technology is the older generation. The younger generation sees it as well, obviously. I mean, everything will change. There will be updates. I mean, something hasn't done, if you don't have an update to your iOS, in every few months you feel that somebody is falling behind. Everything must grow, everything must change, everything must upgrade. And so there is a sense of living in the midst of liquid, simultaneous time streams virtually. And therefore, equally, therefore, it's important for brands to kind of respond in the same vein. The biggest project that the young have today is the self. They are the project never finished, always adding to the project called the self. Investing in the self, admiring of the self all the time. Selfies, India has the largest number of selfie deaths in the world, which is the unhappy side of this. But we just simply cannot stop admiring ourselves, and the adding of dimensions to the self, whether it is through the body and investing in the body, it's through skills, through interests. So brands have the great opportunity of helping consumers become more than their natural selves. And what they are doing increasingly is using the self as broadcast medium. The self, what I do, I think is fascinating for you. Because I'm constantly telling you about what I have done. All the time I'm using the self as material for broadcast. I'm at ease with fashioning myself, but I'm also always in a social embrace. I'm always somehow connecting with other worlds. You look at the whole new fiction genre that has come up, which is confessional, which is, people talking about their own stories. And you're finding, therefore, again, brands need to create content not about themselves, but helping consumers create content about themselves. The great ability now you have in consumers, again, in a digital virtual world to don personae. I mean, these are two people that we met somewhere in Andhra Pradesh. Two young, ordinary boys, but their persona on Facebook. There's one guy calls himself Viper with a V, and has, in that highly exaggerated kind of Telugu film style, done posters of himself, where he reimagines himself as this Superman-like figure. And so on. You will find so many examples of the fact that you can lead a different life, an imagined life. And therefore, fantasy, what is the reason that superhero films in the West do, as well as they do? There's this great ease of moving between reality and fantasy. And I think you see that, again, the importance of marketing to connect to that. The thing about young people is that they want to elude definition. They are not keen to get defined. So they're passing through everything. And if you look at this, they're happy to be many, many, many things at the same time. The classic Twitter bio, for instance, if you see how people describe themselves on Twitter, in the old day, you were engineer, doctor, went to IIT. Today, people don't describe themselves like this. Like this, the lady here describes herself as, is a yoga teacher, she's a philosopher, she's a friend, learner, traveler, writer, lover of nature and life. You will find this is normal. People will describe themselves variously. You are not one thing at any given point in time, you are several. This to me is really interesting and important. What we've come across, and we see this around us, there is a new mode of learning when it comes to the digital generation. Learning in India has always been a very difficult exercise. We learn by rote. The education system does not make learning enjoyable and pleasurable. Today, increasingly, you will find 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds will be adept. We've learned, know this, that, when it comes to technology, 5-year-olds understand technology better than 60-year-olds. There is a certain ease that they have. How do they learn this? And we found this in 5-year-olds, we found this in people who were not schooled or educated, this ability to learn on your own through trial and error on a mobile phone. For instance, this guy is a guy out in the suburbs of Calcutta who runs a business that he learned entirely by figuring it out on his own mobile phone. And what he said, in fact, he used this phrase, he said it in Hindi, he said, कि आजकल नए अंगूठा छाप हैं. What he meant is the angutha chap, of course, is the Hindi for people who can't sign their names and therefore use the thumb imprint, the angutha chap. He's saying the angutha chap is the angutha of the mobile phone. Today, I can navigate the world through my thumbs on a mobile phone. I don't need to have learnt anything formally. The radical potential of creating learning systems that are based on gaming and on self-learning and on discovery, I think are vastly under-leveraged, both in marketing and in fact, much more than marketing. I think this has implications. And there is a need to make a big difference. A social outlook, there is increasingly, in spite, this is the paradox, at one level intensely self-absorbed, at another level also interested in making a difference beyond their own selves, interest in social causes. So many different brands today you see are connecting with this and are speaking of this larger reality. So finally, what it needs, I mean, there is this fundamental change. This is not continuous. This is not just, in conferences, all of us love to talk about change. But this is not just that. This is something deeper than that is happening. And our response to it, because we come from another time, from another mindset, we struggle with this sometimes. But it's important to acknowledge that this is a big change, that we need a response that is authentic. This is a world that seeks authenticity. Be imperfect, but be authentic. Have fun yourself creating, because that's what the audience and this target group will respond to. Let them discover, don't preach, let them discover. Seek share of time, not just share of wallet. The most important thing is to be engaged and interested. Discuss, don't just sell. Invite a real conversation. Help them create content, particularly if it is about themselves. Keep moving, keep doing new things. It doesn't matter if you succeed or fail. This is the great thing in this world. When something bad happens, it goes viral. Everybody is talking about you today. Tomorrow, they don't care. So that's the advantage in this world. And connect with their higher selves. Help them connect with their higher selves. I think that's what they're looking for. This is, this is a conference about leadership. The idea of leadership here is to grasp, have a sense of the fact that we are on the cusp. This is just the beginning. This is the dawn completely of a completely new era. It's to grasp the full implications of this and work and move before the change happens, because I think the time is really ripe now. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Santosh, for taking the debate to a much higher level. Did understand a bit of what you said, not everything. So we have with us Shiv. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Shiv. Shiv is the chairman of PepsiCo, alumnus of IIT Madras, and I am Calcutta. Many years in marketing with Unilever and then with Nokia, and now he's anchoring the Pepsi's huge empire in India. So, and he's also, I know, highly erudite. He reads, I think, 1 book a week. Shiv, do you still average 1 book a week, or has it become 2 books a week? And he has this fabulous habit of making book summaries and sharing it with his team members. So I'd requested each of the panel members to look at building brand digitally from one angle. So Shiv was going to talk about the branding side of digital, right? So over to you, Shiv. Thank you. Thank you for making it.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you, okay, we live in a digital world, but look at the physical strain. I got up at 4 this morning, took a taxi at 4:30, came to the airport at 5:15. A flight which was supposed to take off at 6:05 took off at 6:20. It was supposed to come direct to Chennai. It went to Bangalore because it had less load. So landed in Bangalore. Then from Bangalore, it took 2 hours, 30 minutes to go to Bangalore. Bangalore to here took 35 minutes. And after I landed here, 5 kilometers took me 45 minutes. Okay, so here I am before you. So I've had 7 hours on the road, okay? So please be attentive and please clap at the end, okay? Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is FMCG and the impact of digital and what's happening on FMCG. This is an evolving trend, and I don't think it'll ever stop, but I already see what's happening, and I'm just giving you a perspective from where I sit, okay? What did FMCG do in the past? First, it built brands with emotional equity. That was the pillar of FMCG. Brands were about emotion, tapped into it, got a premium for it, and hence we sold, okay? Number one, the cornerstone of all FMCG was branding, okay? Second was distribution. Distribution was a huge advantage in FMCG. Today, India has 9.9 million retail outlets, okay? So if you went and covered 3 million outlets, like Hindustan Lever does, that's fantastic. It gives you scale. If you went into rural markets, you went into the interior fast, okay, it gave you advantage. That was the second thing we did. Third thing we did was accounts receivable was less than accounts payable. Most FMCG companies work on negative working capital, and that's a huge source of, advantage for them. That was the third thing that FMCG companies did. Fourth thing they did, refresh via innovation. Every 100 years, you get about 6 innovations in FMCG, okay, 6, which means every 15 years, you get 1. In technology, in every year, you get 5 or 6, okay, so that's the difference of FMCG versus tech. And if you look at the shape of the FMCG business, these are listed companies in India. All the listed FMCG companies only. Typical gross margin would be about 50s, okay, discount and allowances about 5 to 10, advertising and marketing 8 to 12, depending on the category you're in. Personal products would be 20, something else will be 4, commodity would be 4, G&A, general and admin expense 6 to 9, net 10 to 15, P ratios are 24 plus. Very happy world, okay? That happiness is not going to last. It's going to be disrupted. So how is digital disrupting FMCG today? Frank Kafka said this, from a certain point of time, there's no turning back. I believe that point of time has already come for FMCG. There is no turning back now. In India, in senior managers and everybody, when you ask them to do something, to change, they ask you for more data. So the safest way is ask for more data. So that's a way of postponing the decision and saying, okay, I'm okay not taking it. Here are the stats, the digital stats before us, okay? In terms of late majority, I'm using the innovation curve. All phones and SMS, huge already, okay? Prepaid, very huge. Internet, huge. Smartphones, huge. WhatsApp, huge. Facebook, huge. Facebook is about 230 million consumers today in India. More than all television sets in India. Okay, that's the ultimate television screen in my book. Twitter, huge. LinkedIn, huge. Everything. We don't need more data in this world. In any business you're in, we don't need more data. This is the data, whether you like it or not. And this will only keep moving to the right. The adoption is just moving to the right, every month. Okay, so if you ask for more data to do something in digital, then you're really living in a prehistoric world, okay? So let's go. If you don't do anything, the first thing which will happen to you is you'll get run over by a truck. You lose control over your margins, your market share, and brand equity, all three, very, very quickly. It's happened to many companies already. It will happen to more in the future, okay? First, how does digital affect us? Consumer commentary. In the past, we stood in front of a television box, we preached from a pulpit and told the consumer, thou shalt buy this. Not true anymore. The consumer has a voice, and the consumer tells us what he or she thinks. So let's look at what the consumer thinks about PepsiCo today, as of yesterday. This is consumer commentary in the social media. So if you look at the consumer commentary, it's about Quaker, it's about PepsiCo, it's about a milk launch, it's about Pummy hates rumors, somebody we use in digital. Okay, it's essentially speaking, it's about Tropicana Essentials, it's about Lay's, okay, it's make each day count. It's all about our brands. The consumer has a distinct view about what is happening out there, very clearly, okay? The first thing digital is doing is time constraint. It's taking away time as a problem completely. Time is no longer a constraint. Okay, and I think Santosh spoke about it also. So everything is in a time compressed world, especially the millennials. Completely time compressed world. They want breakfast to be made, served, eaten in 5 to 7 minutes. They don't have time for breakfast. Today, 25% of Indians skip breakfast every morning. That's the biggest opportunity. They spend more time on everything digital than even breakfast, even though they know it's healthy. Okay, so for a simple F&B company offering great ready-to-cook products, which cook in 5 to 7 minutes, you can eat it on the go, is a huge advantage. The purchase pathway gets fragmented in digital. There is nothing of the old classical model, awareness, interest, desire, action, all that's over. Today, some friend tells you something, you start off, over. That's all. Okay, so the old models of whatever we've learned in marketing are all done and dusted. The principles are valid, but most of that linear way of working is gone. Okay? Next, information. We have a triangle today. The information world is a Google Cloud. The social world is a Facebook page. And the e-commerce world is an Amazon click. That is the digital world we are seeing right now in front of you today. Okay? Celebrity endorsement. In the past, when we signed up celebrities, we'd say, you know what? Shah Rukh's going to have 2 great movies in 2018, so we should sign him. Everything was qualitative. Today, when you sit with celebrity managers, they say, you know what? Shah Rukh has 8 million followers, the other celebrity has 4, so Shah Rukh should be paid twice. Now let's discuss. He has 8, your company, your brand has 4 million followers. How can we make Shah Rukh's following 10? Can we discuss that, please? So today there is a quantitative number on a celebrity. Wasn't there before. In the past, it was all qualitative. Hawa took a bet. Okay? Next is consumers. We told stories about celebrities via our advertising. Today, the consumer doesn't need the celebrity. He's following the celebrity every second. He doesn't need the brand to show him the view of the celebrity. Things are changing significantly in terms of celebrity endorsement right now. What I'm seeing right now is people moving from what I call celebrities to sources of authority. That's the big shift I'm seeing. Okay, and I think Santosh talked about authenticity. A celebrity without authority in that area is just fluff. So you need sources of authority and not celebrities in a future world, especially on digital. Okay? Next, all of e-commerce is about convenience, trust, value, and product assortment. Okay? We see that every day. Okay? Big categories in e-commerce are mobile phones. They're apparel. Okay? Very big categories. Okay? Next, all of e-commerce is related to the density of category outlets. Look at India. Very dense. India has the highest number of outlets per 1,000 population. We have an outlet for every 200 people virtually, or less. 9.9 million retail outlets. Okay, for a 2 trillion economy. Total number of outlets in India is 15 million, all categories put together. America, for a 17 trillion economy, has 1 million outlets. Okay, we have lots of outlets. Okay, so now what's going to happen? People will order on e-commerce, especially the millennials, because they're time-starved, don't want to go to a physical outlet, they hate the traffic, it comes home. For top-up, they'll go to the neighborhood grocer or the neighborhood pawn shop. That's what we are seeing already with the millennials. Okay? Next, with e-commerce, I personally believe we'll see a dramatic shift in consumption. In the old days, consumption for us was, you had a sachet, 40% of the time it was penetration plus consumption. Then we put a large bottle, whatever product, and said, big user, please buy bottle. Modern trade would say, buy 2, get 1 free, or buy 1, get 1 free, etc. And we all did lots of activity to drive consumption. But a housewife could only carry back 3-4 categories in which she was interested. But today with e-commerce, the housewife can click 10 categories for consumption. She can buy 5 bottles of water, 6 bottles of milk, 10 bottles of something else and say, send it home. It's no longer a problem. So one of the big shifts I see in India, thanks to the digital world, is consumption happening much more. We already see that on Big Basket with our brands when we work with Hari and his team. Okay, service level expectations in the supply chain are dramatically different. Okay? And I think people like Domino's, etc., have made a virtue of it. 30 minutes or your pizza free. The expectation of service is redefined with digital. It's no longer that you're surprised by good service. Okay? Inventory levels need to be delivered in a channel agnostic manner. Okay? Every channel is important. You just have to have the inventory to ensure that it works. Click and collect, not happening as it in India, but I believe it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time before this business model also comes to India. Employer branding, very important. You know, as CEOs and working in companies, we send lots of surveys to people saying, please tell me what you think about the company, the culture, the this, the that, etc. We get response rates of 2, 4, 5, and we're very thrilled when we have response rates of 2 to 5. HR managers will jump with joy when I have 5% response rates. Absolute joy. Now, you have a concept called Glassdoor, where people voluntarily go and give commentary. Current employees, ex-employees, others, voluntarily go and give commentary. And I'm going to show you the PepsiCo scores as of yesterday, okay, how they look and what people say. Okay, first, what are our ratings like? Our lifetime rating is about 3.7. 2015, we are 3.5. 2016, we are 3.5. This year, we are 3.8. We made progress. About 4 is very good in Glassdoor if you get it. These are voluntary comments from people, voluntary ratings from people. These are not forced ratings in a company. But every employee who joins PepsiCo, I ask him, what did you look at before you joined PepsiCo? They'll say, I looked at your website, your videos, etc., etc. But most important, I went to Glassdoor and found out what people said about you. This is more, people trust Glassdoor far more than they trust the HR department, the hiring manager, or the CEO today. Okay? Now, what's the word cloud on the positive side for us? Culture, learning, work, good, great, benefits, etc., management, opportunities. This is the positive side of our cloud. This is what people are voluntarily saying about us and what we have. What's the negative side? People, level, company, work-life balance, etc. Now, if you're running a company, you have to look at this carefully every quarter. As senior managers, you have no choice, because your ability to attract talent depends on these two clouds. And whoever is joining your company is making his or her mind up based on those two clouds. So, I've got 5 minutes left. What are the characteristics of a